really do wonder what is the possible purpose for any of this. All right, so check it out. You are a person who believes that you live in the end of days. All right, so you believe you live on the edge, like on the cliff before major global catastrophic events take place. All right, you believe this because you're reading about it in a text that's 2,000 years old. Okay, now in this text that's 2,000 years old, the authors of this text are describing an event that's happening immediately to them. They are the ones that live on the edge then, not you. You're aware, of course, that the New Testament is primarily letters that were handwritten from one person to another person. Like, read the letters from Paul. He's always like, hey, it's me, Paul, with Silas and Timothy, and we're writing this letter to you guys in Thessalonica. How are you guys doing? I hope you guys are doing very well. The letters a lot of times they end with phrases like, make sure to greet that person, stay away from that guy, that coppersmith guy, make sure to bring those books or that coat to me. So the letters are very, very direct to the initial receiver. Well, check it out. The event that's being described in those letters, the return of Jesus, the second coming, the end of all things, the consummation of everything, this event that's on the edge, that you think is on the edge today in 2016, is on the edge for them. You're reading a record of their original letter, and you're reading it in a very peculiar way. You're reading it as if the record is more important than the original letter. That's part of the problem, but that's really the biggest thing. You are reading a record of a letter as if it was a letter that was written to you personally last week. I always am blown away by the Second Thessalonians letter. This letter is so short. It's one page front and back in most people's Bibles. It's only 3 chapters long. It's an amazing, very, very short letter that it's only one page front and back. Chapter 1 says that the Thessalonians are being persecuted and that Jesus is going to come out of the sky to save them. Okay? Literally, that's chapter 1. In chapter 2, the coming is described as the destroying of the wicked, which is somehow an event that has never happened. By any regular reading of the letter, it's the same event that's being described in chapter 1. In chapter 3, in chapter 3, the chapter starts off by saying, pray for us, brothers. Now, who prays for who in this scenario? And that's really what I mean. It's a fabrication, man. It's a tradition. We today are reading these letters as if this event did not happen. If the event didn't happen, the people that wrote the letter have no credibility. They can't be held up as being individuals who are true and inspired and know what they're talking about when they say things like, it is the last hour. and we read it and we say, we live in the last hour 2,000 years later. That's really what it is. That's the primary difference. Both you, the person who lives in 2016, as well as the individual that lived 2,000 years ago, cannot live in the last days. The last days are happening to someone else, and you live after it. I think people understand this, at least subconsciously. They understand that this makes really, really, really good sense. But I think it's impossible, maybe not impossible, very difficult to divorce all of the global, massive, major, catastrophic events that have been created in our minds from this text. I was just doing a reading in Isaiah, and I was blown away by the fact that the language is so over the top, it's really almost comical. In chapter 11 is the prophecy where it talks about how a wolf will lie down with a lamb. I think that's verse 6. If you back up to verses 5 and verse 4 in the very same chapter, he's talking about Jesus, clearly, but look at the things he's saying. He's saying righteousness is the girdle, of his, righteousness is the girdle of his belt. He's not talking about a literal righteous girdle. Any more than he means a literal wolf is going to lie down with a lamb. It's an enormous misunderstanding, and that's what's taking place regarding the end of time. That's why the end of time happened, and it's unrecognized. And I do not know what the full psychological ramifications are for coming into the fullness of understanding that this event already happened in the past. So That's where we are.